So, cool, well, thank you all for coming again. Quiet in the house. Thank you. So thank you all for coming to another Optimise developer meetup in London, back at the Lighthouse with some better food and better drinks this time, so enjoy and go crazy. So I would like to thank all of the sponsors, Optimise for the lovely event space, and then Niteco, Unrivaled and Netcel, who together have helped plan this and paid for the food and drink, so thank you very much. So a quick look at the speaker list we've got here. So we've got Minesh straight off with Frontend hosting, Tom from Optimise doing a number of exciting stuff, myself, application insights and that sort of fun, Andrew from Unrivaled doing Opti Connect, Jacob on Edgelogs, Daniel doing graph integration, and a late addition, Jeremy from Unrivaled coming in for some Greenfield PaaS CMS stuff. So quite a few speakers to get through, so I will quickly hand over now to Minesh, who can then take on and do the next. Thank you.
Right, ready to start? Yeah, good. All right, cool. Thank you for joining us at this Dev Meetup. My name is Minesh. I'm Solutions Architect at Netcel. Been at the company for around 18-ish years, not that long. And ever since then, I've been working with Episerver and Optimise. So yeah, I'm well invested in the Optimise platform. Right, so what are we going to be talking about today? And that is, first of all, I'm going to be introducing Optimise Beta. I got a bit lazy. I used this slide about 2 years ago. Beta's been around for ages, but it is a cool thing to have. Optimise open up the beta access to all partners and customers and our MVPs, etc. It gives people early access to all of the Optimise products, as well as helps Optimise get feedback on where they are going in the direction and roadmap. So definitely go and check out the Optimise beta, and one of the products that we're going to be talking about today is actually part of the Optimise beta. What's that, sorry? Edgelogs 2. Oh, Edgelogs 2, yes, which Jacob is going to be talking about as well. Thank you, Jacob. Right, so moving swiftly on, we have one of the products called Frontend Hosting for Content Management System. As you guys know, about 18 months ago, maybe 2 years, Optimise announced the SaaS version of their CMS product. Now, what is the SaaS version of their CMS product? As it says in the tin, it's the software as a service for the CMS, where Optimise manage the infrastructure, they manage the actual packages, you don't even have to manage any of the deployments. Optimise look after all of that for you. But it's a headless system. Now, where do you actually host the head? Good question. So, what we have at the moment, hosting options, we've got some serverless platforms. You may know the big boys like Netlify and Netcel. Fantastic to host the head. They are fast, simple deployments, so a perfect engineering experience. There's no server management required with these platforms. Netlify and Netcel look after everything from where you're hosting it, to the CDN, to the WAF, even the deployments, I would say. They have serverless functions, so if your front end is doing any back end logic, you can just send them off to the serverless functions and edge functions as well. Like I said, they've got a global CDN, auto SSLs, support for all modern frameworks, front end frameworks that is, Next.js, Astro, etc. And they've got easy preview infrastructures as well. So it's not like you're just deploying your code to a box. If you're working on feature-based development, you can just deploy a feature and get a nice friendly URL to that. So that is the serverless platforms like Netlify and Netcel. You could also host your own using something like Coolify, where basically you stand up your own server or system, and it's an open source platform. You host the Coolify package, and you get very similar to Netlify and Netcel, but there's more engineering effort there. There's a lot more configuration you have to do. But generally, it does a lot of what these Netlify and Netcel platforms do. So that's one option. makes it quite difficult when you sometimes have to go to a third-party vendor or you have to host your own. Firstly, if you have to go to a third party, that's additional contractual negotiations you have to do. And of course, there's a commercial licensing aspect to it as well. Some of these providers, Netcel, so included, they're not the cheapest. Sometimes the licensing fees as much as what you pay Optimizely. I'm not saying Optimizely is hugely expensive, but imagine they're paying for Optimizely, then again, they're paying for this front-end hosting as well. It doubles up, not all clients like that. So what Optimizely hosting has come in, it's kind of filled that gap where they've got the SaaS platform for the headless CMS, and for the front end, they are also offering Optimizely front-end hosting. So again, it's cloud-based hosting. It uses the Azure infrastructure to where your code is actually kept, so safe and secure. They also give you a WAF and a CDN as well. So that's Cloudflare. The infrastructure is Azure. So yeah, for the WAF and CDN, it's Cloudflare. You've got all the image resizing at the edge and all of that nice functionality that you would expect. They've got that all through that Cloudflare system. Environments match SaaS or PaaS. So you're doing a headless solution. You can use both SaaS and PaaS for the Optimizely front-end hosting. So imagine you've got a PaaS CMS where you've got integration, pre-production, and production. You would have the same from a front-end perspective. And to deploy it, you would use the deployment API. And somewhat, that is actually quite good because if you guys are hosting the CMS in a traditional manner, I'm not going to say monolithic, sorry, I said monolithic. If you're hosting it in a traditional manner, you have them and you would deploy that using the deployment API to the DXP, the same way you would do the front end, decoupled front end to it. Now, before I actually show you how it all works, there are some gotchas as well, and there's some room for growth with this front end hosting with Optimizely. Currently, it only supports Next.js. I know people are looking at other front end frameworks, as Jacob has looked at Astro and is very fond of it. At the moment, it only supports Next.js, but there's definitely other platforms in the roadmap. Somewhat limited configurations. What I mean by that is you do have to actually reach out to Optimizely. Let's say you want to add a domain name. If you want to manage any of your caching stuff, you have to reach out to Optimizely using support.optimizely.com. Whereas if you were to, with the cloud providers, it kind of is all self-managed. Here, there's a little bit intervention you have to do. Again, it's not as feature-rich. So when I mentioned like you've got deployment previews with Netcel, even Cloudflare, you don't actually have that with Optimizely. It is literally just integration, pre-production and production, or test 1, test 2 and production. And at the moment, it only supports static deployment. So where Next.js would build it statically, you will only see static front ends. There is incremental static regeneration in the works, which means that if you publish some content in your CMS, it will go to the hosting provider, say, look, I've got new content, please build me a new version of that page, and it will go and do that automatically. That's in the roadmap. Again, it's not too far away, maybe a couple of months. So how does it all work? Let's go and see. So to be honest, I wasn't actually going to have slides today. My whole talk was going to be off this notepad file. And that's how we're going to deploy it. So first of all, I'm going to show you what the PaaS system looks like and what the front end, ooh, what's going on there? It didn't want you to see my notepad. When did it switch off? As I switched. Yeah, but if I do that, will it, yay! That's good, that's good. Right, so let's go straight into what it looks like, the front end hosting. So, if you're familiar with the PaaS portal, this is kind of it at the moment. Sorry, it's not any flashier. So what you first have, in terms of from a deployment perspective, you've got the environments, integration, pre-production, and production. I've actually not deployed to pre-production or production. I'm going to try one of these out fresh today. Hope it works. Fingers crossed. You've got your logs. So if I go to one that I did do an integration, you will see. So if I go to the succeeded one, you will see that it's very familiar territory here. You can see that it's doing the build. I'm just chucked a Next.js deployment at it. And you can see it's done the build and it's deployed it out. Yes, okay, it's not that fancy, but yeah, it does the Next.js deployment. Nice and easy. Now, if I go back to here, what you have is the hostname configuration. So you guys are familiar with the DXP. If you want Optimizely to connect up your host name to Optimizely, you just send them a support request with your project name, organization, etc., and they'll put in your custom host names here and tie them up to one of your environments. You've got the troubleshooting. So if you do nice logs, you can actually see all of your application logs to each of the environments. You can clear your CDN cache, restart any of the environments if you wanted to, as well as get your outbound IPs as well. Who's that? No, I can't sell you Optimizely today, sorry. And API. So this is the most important part. So again, if you're familiar with the deployment API, you use these keys to actually deploy out to one of the infrastructures. And then you've got your app settings. This is where you hold your environment variables. So imagine you've got your SaaS-based CMS. That front end needs to talk to GraphQL or one of your APIs or something. And this is where you would set up your environment variables. So let's just say it was a graph connection string. You would just add it in here, and the front end would actually go and talk to it. So what we're going to do now is try and do a deployment. So first of all, I go to the API. I add my API credentials. And let's call this dev meetup prep, and we choose pre-production. Do we do the edge logs or leave that to you? Jacob will show this in a bit. And click on save. What that will do is generate me a bunch of API keys. So make sure you write these down in a secure manner. Once they go, they go. You have to recreate them. So I'll come back to this. I'm not going to refresh this page because it will go wrong. I'll come back to these. Now what I want to do is via PowerShell connect to the deployment API. So what we do is go and open up PowerShell. Again, you can automate all of this. I'm just showing it in PowerShell just so I can show you the sequencing. So with DevOps, you can make a YAML script and automate this whole process if you want in a CI/CD process. So let's go to YAML. Not YAML, let's go to PowerShell. And let's look at the first line. So I want to connect. What I have to connect with, first of all, you've got your client key, client secret, and project ID. So let's grab this, make that, and we've got a client key that I can put in over here, which is over here. I'm doing it over here, then I can paste it into my PowerShell. Makes it easier. And client secret, you guys can copy this if you want. Honestly, go nuts if you need to. I will be deleting them after this talk. And client secret, and then finally the project ID, which is over here. And let's go and copy this. Woohoo! Okay, cool. And that's not my, yes it is. Why is it not? Sorry. I normally use a keyboard and mouse, makes life so much easier. There we go. I hit return. And now I have actually connected into the platform to actually start my deployment up. The next step would be actually getting a SaaS URL. So when I've got a package, I have to deploy it to a storage account in Azure and then actually start the deployment. To actually get the URL of where I can upload that package to, I can do this, get epi deployment package location. I'm missing a few steps, I know, but I've just looked at my time. So that will generate me a SaaS-based URL, but I want to put that into a variable. So SaaS URL, so that is me putting into a variable. And back and forth. There we go. And I can now package up my Next.js directory and upload it. So when we say package it up, I definitely recommend automating this, but just to show you what it might look like. This is my Next.js sort of route. You've got my sources file, and you've got basically a Next.js option here. So we're going to package it up. I'm going to delete the node modules because I don't want to send that up as well. As part of the build process, it automatically manages it. So let's delete the node modules and let's zip it up. Okay, I am running this. Let's not run this. Try that again. Okay, while that's deleting, so the package has to be in a very specific name. So you can call the project whatever you want, but it has to have .head.app and then the version number behind it. So let's just zip it up into this file name. And go over here, Control A, and compress to zip file. So it's going to make that for me quickly. And let's give it a name. So my front end head app, let's give it today's date, which is July the 10th. Okay, cool. So now I've got that, we can go and upload that to that directory to start the deployment. So to do that, we add epi deployment package to that SAS URL and give it the path that we are in. So what path is my PowerShell in? Because it might be quicker copying into there. I'm just in my head directory, so Control X there and just put it in. Okay, cool. So let's go and upload that. So add the package, Control C there, and we're just gonna change the date over here from the 1st to the 10th. Ooh. I knew that. I was just testing. Just testing. .zip might not work actually, so let's just go and rename that. You're right, actually. You can see the one below that was my test. Thank you. And let's try it one more time. So that's gone and uploaded it. And beautiful. And let's go and start that deployment now. So the next bit is literally just start epi deployment. You give it your file name, you give it your target. I'm going to do a direct deploy to be quick. This might not work because actually I don't know if you can do direct deploy to pre-production. I know before you could only do it to integration, but let's give it a go. So, yep. Let's just go and change this to the 10th. Start epi deployment, there, target deployment to pre-production. If this doesn't work, then we can change it and hit return. Right, I'm aware of the time. API call failed, the remote server returned 400. Okay, it's not able to do it. What's that? Direct deploy might not work. Okay, let me just remove that key because it is pre-production. Like I said, direct deploy may only work to integration. Let's give that a go. Yep, it's doing it. But you can imagine what it does next. It does that Next.js build and deploys out this whole package. Normally when Vercel succeeds with a deployment, it does confetti. I'm going to have confetti as well. Whee! Pretend it worked. So yeah, what this gives you is I've just uploaded a standard Next.js boilerplate up onto these environments. So you can see that if I go back to my PaaS portal and look at the host names, let's copy this. I know it's production, but we can do this over here, change production to, my testbed was integration, so let's just do inti. And you can see that it deployed that front end quite easily. It does all the static building, but if we look at the logs as well, and while my build is going on, we can go to deployments, and you can see it's deploying to pre-production. And what's the log saying? It's only 1% complete. Do you guys want to really wait for 100%? You get the idea. It works. It's quite easy. And you can host your front end head with Optimizely now. That's it. Any questions? Yay.
So you were saying that ISR is to be coming soon?
Yeah.
if you wanted to have an SSR strategy, is that supported? Or?
So dynamic server-side rendering is currently, yes, it should be supported. I'm not 100% sure because I've only done static builds and static deployments, but I'm guessing that dynamic should just work. It depends on what the infrastructure is in Azure that they're using behind the scenes. If it's a web static app, then it won't work, but if it's a normal Azure web app, it will work.
Cool. Thank you.
Any other questions? I know Justin had a few. Well, that's me. I am Minesh. If you guys want to connect, reach out, mineshshah@netcel.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. I have got a YouTube channel as well, but that's where I upload. No, that's where I upload my optimizing stuff as well. But yeah, you just search for Minesh, you should see me. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks everyone. My name's Tom from Optimizely. I'm one of the product managers on CMS. I mostly handle the marketing experience and the experience for our marketing customers. Thank you to Scott for inviting me back. I was here last year. Last year I was presenting the commerce roadmap. And as I say, I've switched over to the dark side now and I'm here to talk about CMS. All right, so I've got quite a few slides to go through. And if I've got time, a couple of demos. So we've got a bit of a crammed agenda. Going to start with CMS 13. Going to talk about Opal. Have to talk about Opal as part of Optimizely. Yeah, that's what we want. We're going to talk about, is Opal in the room with us? We're going to talk about what's coming soon, what's on the roadmap, and if we have time, I'm going to do a quick demo of Embeddable DAM, and I'm also going to talk about Content Manager and external sources. We had AI translations on the agenda, but I think we're going to run out of time, but if you want to talk about that as well, please feel free to grab me at the end. And also, just because I'm conscious of time, we may run out of time for questions, so please just grab me at the break. Happy to answer any questions that you've got, but I think I'll start getting daggers from Scott if I run on too long. All right, so CMS 13, coming early 2026. I'm sure a lot of you have seen these slides before. Just as a very quick headline, some of the capabilities that are coming in CMS 13, already available on SaaS, a lot of these. So Visual Builder, Opal, Embedded DAM, as I'll demonstrate later. User-friendly forms, this is being able to build forms in Visual Builder, make it nice and easy for marketers to just pick up and run with those. And that's all coming to CMS 13. In terms of a rough timeline, we're going to be making the pre-release available in Q4, so very soon. We'll be making a lot of noise about that when it's available, so you'll all have full awareness. You'll be able to grab that pre-release, see what it looks like, start playing with it, ask us questions, give us feedback. That's what we want, and it'll help to shape what comes out next year as well. We also know that guides and documentation have been something that we would like to improve upon, and so you'll be seeing much more detailed guides for CMS 13 coming as well. And then one of the key call-outs that we wanted to stress was that the graph delivery APIs will be available as part of CMS 13, but are not a requirement. And one of the things we wanted to be super clear about was we're not going to force your customers to start going headless. I think there were some concerns around that. That's not going to be the case. There'll be .NET SDK supported, and you will be able to use what you have today. It's just you'll have options when CMS 13 arrives. Alongside CMS 13, we're still continuing to develop on CMS 12. So some of the things that you can expect, I'll talk about Premium DSP in a little while. Opal, coming to CMS 12. This is something we really wanted to bring forward. So we're doing the work this quarter to make sure that Opal comes to PaaS, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that in the future. Front-end hosting, yeah, we've just seen a great demo of that one. Saves me a slide in a bit as well. And graph improvements, we know that there's some much needed graph improvements that have been requested, so they'll be coming. So search analytics, best bets, some of those key features that we really want to bring to the table, you can expect those before the end of the year as well. So that's a very quick headline on CMS 13. I know there's probably more questions. As I say, please do grab me later. We will keep talking about it, but I'm also aware that you've probably all heard a lot about CMS 13 so far. So we're going to talk about some of the stuff you might not yet have heard around Opal and Opal in CMS. Okay, so again, another slide that you may be familiar with if you're at the partner close-up. There's also a really great webinar that went out from Simon Chapman this morning about midday, so please find that on our website. But when we talk about Opal, within Optimizely, it's more than a chatbot, it's more than an assistant. This is kind of your infinite workforce. This is a bunch of specialist agents within the product that know your brand, know your customer's context, and they are informed by that, and therefore they can take that context and make decisions, help you make those decisions for you, and also drive kind of new functionality within the product. I wanted to talk about it from the CMS perspective and how we think about it within the CMS team. And I think one of the best ways I can articulate that is with this image. Hopefully, a lot of people saw this. It went viral last year. I think it's something that we can all relate to. So, I want AI to do my laundry and dishes so that I can do art and writing, not the other way around. I think if you take that as a philosophy, that's exactly what we should be thinking about when we think about Opal and AI within CMS. So what that means is, allowing our customers to do the work that they love and letting Opal and our AI functionality take care of everything else, all the administrative work. And that's also true for our engineering partners. We want to eliminate the work that you don't need to do, don't like to do, so that you can really focus on what makes your partnership with your customer unique, and you can add that value that others can't with the experience that you have. So I think this sums it up really nicely, and let's have a look at what that means in terms of some functionality coming for Opal for CMS. I want to also talk about some of the other innovation that we're doing on the product, some of the stuff that we've just released, but also some of the stuff that's coming before the end of the year as well. All right, so we've had a busy first half of the year. We're going to have a very busy second half of the year. Some of our key themes are just identified there at the top. But in terms of some of the things that we've released so far this year, HIPAA. So if you have any American healthcare customers, SaaS CMS is now HIPAA enabled, which means that they can then utilize it. Embedded DAM, I'll give a quick demo of shortly, but this is really about integrating our Optimizely DAM straight within the CMS. No switching products, it's directly there available in the UI. Content Manager, hopefully a lot of you have had the chance to play with Content Manager so far. It's one place for storing all of your content across CMS, which we know as sites get bigger, content expands, that can be quite difficult. So that just gives you one central view, everything you could need. Opal, obviously already available on SaaS, and AI translations. We will be looking at how we support bulk AI translations in the near future as well. All right, so coming soon. I'm conscious, I'm already at 15 minutes. I don't know where the time's going. So, imminent. It's about to go out. Forms in Visual Builder. This is really about a really nice, easy to use interface for building out forms on SaaS. It's very much a simplified forms experience for the time being, but that roadmap will be growing. This is about setting the baseline for allowing headless forms on SaaS. And so watch out for that release to be coming soon. Also imminent are JavaScript SDKs and templates. We know that that's been something that's been highly sought after. And so helping everyone get off the ground with something to work with rather than starting from scratch. I often described it as we used to often give people the bricks or the house and nothing in between. So we're moving towards a world whereby we give you a little bit more. Front-end hosting. I'm going to skip past this one because Minesh did such a great demo. Optimize the Connect platform. I'm also going to skip past because we have a demo on this later, but this is going to be the place that you come to integrate all products into CMS. Beta is already available for you to try, but Andrew's going to give us a presentation on that shortly. Opal for PaaS, we've touched on, but as I say, that's coming very soon as well. And then Premium DXP, I think the most important thing to call out on this one is our SLA. So if you have a customer who has high SLA needs, we're now supporting 99.95% SLA when paired with our premium support services. It's 99.9% without. There might be a question on pricing. I can say it's going to be competitive. I can't give you any more information than that just yet, but it is coming very, very soon. We'll be making announcements about that, and we'll get very clear about what's coming. And that's not even all of it. There's still so much more. I tried to condense it down for this presentation. If you follow that QR code, it'll take you to that link, which is our 2025 summer product roadmap series, and you can find out everything that's coming to CMS and optimize and across all products as well as just the CMS. All right, so how am I doing?
5 minutes.
5 minutes? Okay. Let's have a quick look at embedded DAM. And then I'll probably have to hand the reins over. All right, let me just move this over to the screen. All right, so part of the Optimizely One offering is all about how do we make it easier for our customers to utilize all of our products seamlessly. You know, no more having to switch between opening different tabs. You know, it should feel like one system if they want to use it. So as a lot of you will probably already know, we're already enabling DAM for all SaaS customers. Every SaaS customer will get this. Embeddable DAM will also be coming to PaaS in the future. But I wanted to just give you a quick demo of how you get that set up and what it looks like. So if we just come over here into the settings, there's a couple of setup steps. So you'll see a new tab here called Optimize the DAM Features. And essentially, what you'll need to do is tick all of these boxes. As you can see, I've already ticked them. Once you have ticked them, you won't be able to untick them, just as an FYI. And then you pick the DAM instance that you want to connect to. Now, I may have a few, but typically your customers will just see their one or their two, depending on how many DAM instances that they have available to them. And once that's done, essentially you'll see a new icon over here on the left-hand side, which looks like a little folder with an image on it. And just like that, in comes Optimize this DAM. Now, you can still use the DAM separately in CMP if you wish to. So if some customers don't want their teams to have access to the CMS, they just want their team to have access to the DAM, that's still okay. They can do that. It means they'll still be able to make updates to the DAM. Those updates will pull through and you'll see that within CMS. But it also means that your customers who want access to both of those things will be able to do that straight from here. And we've started to get all of the DAM functionality coming through in this. Essentially what this is doing behind the scenes is a micro front end. And so what that means is that as the DAM team continue to evolve their product and continue to release updates to it, it's working in the background, so that doesn't even depend on the CMS release cycle. Updates will come to DAM that we get the benefit of within CMS, and your customers ultimately get that benefit too. It's almost like running two SaaS services in one product. And it also comes with its own Opal functionality, which also integrates with CMS SaaS as well. So some of the key benefits I think worth pointing out, if we just come in here and we hit edit, we get the full DAM image editor. So much more comprehensive than what was currently offered in CMS. And you can do a lot more with it. You can obviously pick renditions. You can manage all your kind of asset information and your metadata. You can make those changes. You have a lot more control. And particularly on SaaS right now, but as I say in the future on PaaS, the expectation is that customers will save all of their assets into DAM. And this will become, in many ways, the new media library for CMS. So a much more comprehensive, full suite of asset management without having to jump between products, without having to load up another. But will still play nice if the customer is using a binder or on other products as well. So it gives customers choice, and it's included with SaaS CMS already. Okay, I was going to do a quick demo on Content Manager. I'm conscious of time, but I'll do a separate one. You've got time?
Yeah.
All right, cool. I'll just keep going. Sorry, guys, everybody else. I want to show you Content Manager very quickly just to show you what it looks like. Hopefully a lot of you have seen it. Essentially, it's a flat view of all of your content within CMS. And you can see, and we can dip into content straight from here. We can make quick edits, and you can see that just loading in here. We've also got what we call a grid view, which allows you to see a more kind of image-centric version of your content. We continue to bring updates to this. You can search, and search is powered by Graph. You've got filters here, depending on an asset type. But what I wanted to kind of give you guys, the reason why we've moved towards Content Manager is really all to do with external content. And I want to show you what we're building this quarter. I don't have the real build for you to show. It's still very much in the works, but I wanted to just paint a picture of where we're going with it. So in this example, we're looking at Content Manager, and you can see a new interaction down here, which is called Add External Sources. And this is going to be tied to the OCP demo that Andrew's going to give us later. But let's say you've already got CMS, you've already got DAM. Those are two of the sources of content available to you within CMS. But let's say you've also got Binder. So what you're going to do is you're going to hit Add External Sources. You're going to come over here. This is now in OCP, which we'll see shortly. We come to Binder. We follow the install steps. And essentially, you can see we've now plugged in Binder. So as you can see, prompted to enter those credentials, and we start to map Binder assets into CMS. Now, I'm going to show you the happy path, and then I'll show you the slightly unhappy path. In this example, everything's just coming through nicely. We already have an understanding of what to expect from Binder in terms of its data schema. We have a new concept of standards within Graph that will support essentially a baseline metadata schema for all of our external sources content. And it's also true for the CMS content as well. But what that means is when it comes into Content Manager, we understand what properties are going to come through, how to render it out, and how to visualize it. So if I just go to the next step, now that we've plugged in Binder, you can then see that showing up here in Content Manager. So now we're starting to pull through into Content Manager, not just Optimizely-based content, but also the Binder-based content. In the future, we'll be bringing in commerce content from commerce partners. Essentially, you'll be able to plug in any kind of external content that you can imagine. And so in this example, we're filtering by image here, and we can start to see we've got some DAM images, we've also got Binder images. And eventually where we'll get to is that when you're editing a page and you want to change this image, for example, that then loads up Content Manager, which will become the new picker. You can see we've got a Binder asset, and we can pull that Binder asset through onto the page through Visual Builder. No jumping between products. It's kind of, it will cover wherever the source is coming from, provided it follows that standard. We know how to pull it into Optimizely. So this is really kind of one of the most, I think, exciting things coming this year for Content Manager, which is the purpose of why we built it. Very quickly, in this example, I just want to show you what that mapping will look like. So I mentioned before, content will need to follow a kind of data schema. So in this example, you can see we've got an Optimizely image standard. Here's some of the key properties that we expect every image, wherever it's coming from, will probably have or fulfill. So you just map those across from Binder into Optimizely. You can also support custom properties. We're not limited to just the standard, but it means that for the properties that we know about, we can render those effectively for your customers. We know what to display, and everything else will be supported by the detail pane in Content Manager, so you get that full visibility of all the information of your content. And ultimately, once you've done that mapping, you'll be able to pull that through. So I know that was a lot to take in. I know it was very quick run through. Please do grab me afterwards for any questions that you have. But in terms of just getting you a little bit excited about what's coming this year, that's a quick roundup of what we've got on offer. Please do check out the summer product roadmap update on the website, and grab me during the break for any questions that you've got. And now I'll hand over to Scott. So apologies, Scott. Thank you.
Cool. So I'm going to be talking about the exciting topic of application insights and having a look at data and how you basically go through and look at errors, logs. This might be stuff you know, but there's a couple of things I've picked up over the years, and I believe that there's a limitation when it comes to the amount of data, knowledge, and tutorials and things out there. So maybe you'll pick something up. So a bit about me. So solution architect at Niteco. Too many wines already. So I like metal, gym, lifting, and gaming. That's my hobbies. And so my agenda, I'm going to talk about a bit about application map and telemetry, customizing that, basically then drilling into some of the ways that I look at performance, failures, metrics, and a bit of a KQL. and then basically a few of the missing features that I think would be nice to have on the DXP. And as Optimize are here, maybe make a note and then you can bring them. And then a little bit about portal logs and Docker. So cool. So obviously, application insights. It's that default metrics platform that we have that we are just given out of the box. We've all probably worked with a number of different ones. New Relic, application insights, a couple of different ones. But we get application insights out of the box. When we're given this, there's not really a lot of training, a lot of like information given to us about it is. So if you're new to it or you're starting off with it, there can be a lot of overloading areas when it comes to application insights. But it's great because it can capture both metrics from the back end and also from the JavaScript layer. So you can see the front end and the back end and get all that information. So it's basically tied up like this when it comes to the DXP. We have a client going into the DXP, and then we have an application insights logger that is configured. That is automatically set up for you in the Episerver Cloud Platform CMS. That can be customized, that can be adjusted, and I've got some examples on this that I didn't come up with. I took from a blog from a long time ago, but useful. But it's quite interesting. You can adjust it a bit, you can change it around, and then there's a JavaScript renderer that renders out the JavaScript metrics collection. Again, there is a settings key that you can easily turn off. And so if, like with myself, where you've been pestered by Optimizing and they've said to you, can you reduce the telemetry on the front end? You can adjust that, you can take it out, and then you can like shelter it and reduce the amount of telemetry that you're collecting on a big client. So I'm going to first talk off a little bit about the application map. So, I quite like the application map when it comes to application insights. I'm going to go through the slides first, and then I'm going to go in and show you some stuff. But I think if I'm going to jump around a bit, it's going to be a bit like confusing. So I'll just go through it all first. So the application map is cool because basically it will show you all of the cores, all of the things that are going on in your application. It will show you the back end, the front end, and you can really sort of drill down into this. And basically by doing this, we can really see the information you need. Actually, let me just switch between, otherwise it won't really make sense. Let's just go on the fly. So here's a client I've got. So when you come into the application map, what I love about this is, very quickly you can see all the components when it comes to your client. So if you take a client here and the production site that I'm using right here, you can see all the information about what you're doing. So what's cool with this is if you jump in and you go into it, you can see all of your calls. So everything both from the different instances you've got, where you can go in and you can see the slowest requests, you can jump straight into the investigation pane, you can filter it and filter for specific information based similar to other areas, but I'm going to show a bit more of that in a minute. But then you can also see like API calls that are being made, that you're making to your systems, your payment providers, etc. But you can also see the front end calls. So so you can see when you're going to client, we can see a number of calls here. So this very easy allows you to drill into like everything that's going on in your system. Like sometimes you might have a problem and you might not know if a payment call is being made or something's happening, and where you could go into one of the other views that I'm going to show, this allows you to very quickly just have a full understanding of everything from the client, from the back end, and from everything that you're working on, including like the Azure blobs or any of the APIs. So, we might have all used this, but it's just very easy. Go in, have a look at it, and you can drill down into the filtering areas, see from the front end all the HTTP calls that you're making, see where they're slow, see where they might need more performance. You can click into these and you can really just explore these calls a lot more in depth. You can filter out to specific nodes. It just gives you that very quick view of that, which is really cool. So, quite cool. But how do we, that's quite interesting, but, when it comes to customizing this, what can we do when it comes to the application insights area? So basically we can inject, one of the cool things is being able to inject SQL. So when it comes to application insights out of the box, when you go in, you often see calls to the database, and it just says, here's a stored procedure, or here's a call, but you don't get any information on it. So when you customize it, you can basically customize it by injecting the SQL call in it. You can remove junk data, which is like dependencies, and I've got a slide on that. You can customize, some of the logging levels, disable some of the things like the live metrics if it's, causing some performance overhead. So like customizing this, and this is taken directly ripped off from someone's blog, so credit to them. But basically, you can see at the top here, one of the common things is all these extra dependencies. So we get masses and masses of dependencies in application insights that are basically like, here the service bus has triggered an event, here SQL's done something that is common that you don't care about. And so when you come into here and you start looking at the dependency telemetry, it ends up becoming a bit of a mess. You don't really need all that data, and if you have got a large amount of traffic, you couldn't even hit the limits when it comes to the application insights cap, and then you'll get told off, and you have to do more work on it by optimizing. So what can you do? So what's really cool is there's a number of basically interfaces and areas that you can inject when it comes into your startup to customize this. So there's this iTelemetry processor, and that's basically a processor you can easily go in where this will get called on any of the pieces of telemetry you get called. So I've specifically on a client removed all of the Azure Service Bus telemetry because I don't care about that. This is stuff that you don't care about. The service bus is going to run, unless it's an error, you don't really care about it. So remove all of that. Basically, and then when it comes to SQL and it's within a specific time frame, we're also telling it to log SQL queries as well. So we're adding this in, and there's also a number of things you can customize here. You can disable the pulse metrics, which is the live view, which sometimes can add a bit of overhead in that, but I tend to leave it on. But there's a number of other filters as well, and then adding this command in here will inject that, but it only injects it when the SQL is a long-running SQL query. So you don't get it for everything to build it up. You just get what you need, it's just changed and logged when you have a long-run query that you need to investigate. So that's quite cool. So other areas that are really useful, so performance and metrics. So performance tab, this is really good in my view for filtering between the server, the browser, and really drilling it down and getting the metrics you need. So rather than a big slide, I'll jump back into my presentation. So when we're going into the performance blade, we've all probably seen this, but not everyone has drilled in fully or understood this fully, I don't think, because there's not a masses of really good documentation. So I think the key here is, we've got on the left side, there's a lot of filtering that some people do or don't use. You can filter between browser and server, but then you can specifically filter down to individual roles. So not everyone realizes that, for example, you can disable the scheduler and take the scheduler information off. Sometimes you just want the front end, you just want the client facing errors and problems. So getting rid of that role is a very quick win to be don't care about the scheduler if you care about that. Then you can basically filter this down a bit further. You can look at these operations. You can see the graph. There's multiple slices here, so you can see CPU consumption trends. You can filter it down to the different percentiles if you want to see what's the underlying worst calls, etc. And then you can see those operations. And what's the biggest thing here is when you filter this down and you've seen the information, what's the useful thing is this side here, and basically filtering this down to each of these triangles, which are every place where you've got basically some profiler trace. So when you've got profiler tracing on, you can go down and you can filter this down, and you can say I want to look at why this call was 2.8 milliseconds. So let's go down, really filter it down, and then we can go into a number of profiler traces. So you can effectively filter this down. This often takes a long time to load. Maybe you're familiar with this anyway, but you can look at the frame graph, you can look at the profile of why this call was slow, and then download the trace and investigate it in your tool of choice. I personally love the JetBrains tooling. So I think what's really cool is, there's a lot of filtering, a lot of power in this. What's also cool that not everyone realizes is also you've got code optimizations, which is a very easy, quick win that you can just click on and see. So code optimizations is something I often go in and just regularly have a look at, and then you can literally specifically see anything that it thinks is slow. Well, it's strange that it thinks search and navigation or find is slow. Who would have thought that? But you know, you can get a few quick wins without having to really go further into this, and you can filter this between operations and dependencies, so you can see all of your long-running dependencies, any SQL calls, etc. So it's just very useful to understand the filters, I think, being able to filter this down. If you click the filter here, you can filter this down to specific URLs, specific paths, specific information, so you can really drill this down into what you want it to be. How am I doing for time? Cool, about 10 minutes-ish. Cool. So yeah, as I say, see all those sorts of informations. Exceptions, again, you know, I won't go too far into this, but you know, the failures or exceptions area, again, very similar, but you know, you can really drill down and see the exceptions, and the beauty of this is when you go into the exceptions, you can really go narrow this down, filter it down, and see the specifics of all the exception information. And should we have turned on the SQL logging, if it's got SQL, if it's a SQL dependency, you'll see the SQL information and what the call was. So you can not only just see what might be slow for SQL, you can see the exact query, which is often lost. Which is cool. So you know, you can really drill this down. So I won't go. I think I'm a bit behind on time, but I, you know, I love the simplicity of this, but also the, you know, the ability of filtering this down, really drilling into all the information. But you've probably mostly seen all of this stuff. So the area that's also cool, and I think it has a few tips and tricks that I really like as well, and optimizely, you know, use all the time when you go on it, is the metrics. And you know, if you have an instance or something that's, you know, causing a problem, and you want to go in and you basically want to go in like here, as we say, and you want to be looking at, for example, like the response time, you can go in, you can go to server response time and average. Now, some people come in and just look at this and go, you know, what's going on here. You know, if you, quite often when it comes to like optimizing support, you might have a problem, and there might be like there's been a problem and there's a specific instance that has a problem. Sometimes that's the problem with diagnosing, it's like the specific instances. So the cool thing here is, what I like is the apply splitting that not everyone knows about. But if you go apply splitting and then you do based upon the cloud role instance, you can basically split this graph to see over this time every single instance. So again, you could remove the scheduler service, but then you can see which instances are causing problems. So if you've got like pingdom, or you've got alerting, and you want to know exactly what the instance is, you can go in and see when a specific instance was causing a problem, drill it in, and really get the information out of this. And then let me just cool, yeah. So that's where then things like the logging area is quite cool, because I've got a blog about this, so I won't go into this too much. But basically, when you've got the metrics and you drill it down, sometimes I find it's quite difficult to go into the performance blade and narrow down specifically the instance and where the problem was to specifically the cloud role instance. So what I like to do is effectively go into this, find where my spike was with UTC, which is important, basically get the log-based metrics, capture the time where there was a problem. This is obviously if like the client's asking you for a reason why the site was going down, or why there was a problem, why a spike happened. Get the UTC time, capture the name of the instance, and then effectively you can go in and then you can filter. Did I get the wrong, I might have screenshotted the wrong query. Oh, sorry, no, it's coming up. So when you've got the logger, you've got the power of KQL. So KQL, you effectively have, you know, some people haven't used this. It's like quite in depth, but it's really powerful. All the metrics that you have, are all powered by all of these tables. So you've got all of the information for the exceptions, the page views, and these are also customized tables that optimize these metric system, put information in. So you can easily go in and you can get all of the information like it's a table for every piece of exception. And then it gives you the simple mode where you can like click and you can basically build up filters and you can add columns in, or you can, you know, if you're a developer, use KQL, and that has a specific resource for, you know, how you query this, but it's like a reverse SQL effectively. But you can go in and get exactly what you want. So what I like about this is, for example, you can go into the metrics view, you can look for a specific instance, you can say this instance is causing a problem, capture it in a time frame, and then you can go in and then you can put that specific instance in the Cloud Role instance call and then pull out all the information, and you can see every single performance bucket of every single area that's causing a potential problem. And that gives you, and then you can export this as well from that straight to Excel. So you can start like looking through this, capturing that information, which is quite useful for logging all of this and for the root cause analysis. And then when you get that specific call or ID, you can easily then just go into the transactional search area, which I haven't talked about, but you know, you guys are probably all familiar with this anyway, so I'm probably teaching people to suck eggs. But you can go into the transactional search and you can specifically search for, you know, the operation or the page view on where these happened. So you can pull out the specific underlying individual information. The way I found it hard before is, you know, when you can go into the performance area or the failures area, and you can see where there's been like failures, but there's a lot of information. It's very hard to narrow it down. Whereas if you have like a specific instance that has crashed and then you're testing it and the client comes in and you're doing root cause analysis why this is happening, going into the metrics view, narrowing it down on the UTC time and then pulling that into the KQL queries will give you every single call, every page and every single request that was associated to that performance point. And then you can just go individually for each of these and then actually look at the profiler trace attached, the call, why it was slow. In this example, search and navigation was slow. I'm not going to keep banging that drum because I mean we've got graph now, so you know it's all good. And there's some great graph improvements coming. Cool. So other missing features and sort of general features that I'll just very quickly talk about, but I won't go too in depth. Although there's limitations on what you can do with dashboards, not everyone realizes that you can still, if you go to the main overview, you can still click on application dashboard at the top here, and that will generate a dashboard within this instance. It used to be a while ago you didn't have access to do this, but this now has access, and you can customize these tiles, you can add in things, so you can build yourself a quick dashboard that for you or support or the teams might want to look at, so you can see some like quick information on failed requests, server times, etc., etc. Now that's all cool. Workbooks, very quickly. Workbooks are quite cool. They're basically a bit like, well, I think like a bit like Power BI, but they're, you know, you can go into these. Let me just go back into these, and you can create your own workbooks. But there's a whole load of cool ones in there that I use sometimes that are like the failure analysis. And what's this cool is because it's like a two-parter, so you can see if there's like let's say there's a problem here, you can actually go into this, and then when you click onto it, you can see like time frames and more information on the operations, etc. So you can go in and create your own workbooks that have like a two-step approach, have the underlying data, and then give you more information on that data. So if you're building an exception report, you could probably see all the latest exceptions in half an hour and then draw into that information a bit more, you know, in depth. So sometimes overlooked but useful. Now here's the things that I think are missing and would be very useful. Maybe if there was a enhanced DXP premium offering, that would be a cool thing to add in here. So we've got alerts and automation. So one of the things that has always been limited is alerts are a paid for thing. So we will have to be very reactive when it comes to looking at data. I know we can get the API keys for application insights, so you can build stuff, but there is an alerting section in application insights where if metrics hit slow performance, etc., you get alerts. And when, at least whenever I've ever tried to do that, you get an alert or you get told off because you don't have access. So correct me if I'm wrong, everyone else has managed to do it, but as far as I'm aware, because it's a paid feature, you can't use it, but a limited amount of, you know, or pool of monies or things where we could do that, and some of the automation stuff would be useful. There's a create DevOps ticket feature, whereas if you've got an exception up, when you go into the, you know, the failures view, and you go into it and you look at the underlying sample, there is a create work item up here, and you can automatically generate work items of all the information into Azure DevOps, which if you're using that would be cool to be able to do. Again, it's a permission issue, so you know, might be just about connecting those up. And then some of the dashboard features are limited. I think I'm very low on time, so I'll go very quick. The other thing was just a recap on some of the other PaaS portal sort of Docker logs. I'll just talk about that quickly. And that's that obviously there's a lot of logs in there, but still you can set up application insights as a trace to push all of your, like obviously your trace and your information that you see in the PaaS portal. But again, like sorting out between these different sides. I see there's like 3 core sides. You know, go into the PaaS portal for your streaming error logs, important errors that are running very quickly. Go into obviously application insights when you again want to capture that, but with a bit more information and detail. But then if you have infrastructure stuff, you often need the Docker logs. So then obviously you've got those on integration, but contact Optimizely if you have infrastructure issues, which usually is only when you first deploy anyway. So it's all good. So that was quite quick. But if anyone ever wants some more information on application insights or some KQL tips and tricks, the thing I've got on the slide that will be shared has loads of KQL examples and queries and teaches you how to do it, but I think it's a very good thing to learn what the underlying data structures and information is as well. So, and as I said, you can get the application keys. If you contact Optimizely support, they will give you the DXP application insights keys, so you can connect it and pull the data out as well if you want to build stuff. But that's it, very quick. I speak very fast, sorry.
Welcome everyone. So where are we? Right, so most people know me. I'm a solution architect at UNRVLD, been working with Optimizely for 14 years, OMVP for 4 years, and I also maintain 2 Optimizely modules, so the one and only, the premier security module, and also ODP visitor groups. Okay, so today I want to talk about OCP. I've lost my voice. And kind of talk through what the product is and what does it offer. Okay, the whole premise is it's a product or a platform that is easily allowing you to integrate external systems into the Optimizely One ecosystem. It's built upon the current Connect platform for ODP, and my understanding is that platform for ODP is going to be maintained, and that may change over time, but they're serving kind of different purposes. The one for ODP is only for getting data into ODP, whereas OCP is more about the whole wider Optimizely ecosystem. There are a number of pre-built apps that you can choose from, and that's going to extend over time. Or if what is on offer doesn't suit your needs, then you can actually build your own as well. Okay. There are going to be 2 licensing models, and I'll kind of get into what the differences are, but kind of at a high level. There is a free tier, which gives you real-time syncing, and you are able to create your own public apps. And then there's the paid model. This gives you the real-time syncing, but it also allows you to push data into an intermediary database, the OCP database. You can create public apps or private apps. So you may want to develop an app that's specifically for your agency, or it may be for a specific client. And you're also able to do file ingest and get data sent in via webhooks and a REST API. Okay, so I want to talk about end-to-end apps. So this is kind of one kind of app that you can use or create yourself. And they perform a specific purpose. So their role is to sync data between a system and push it into a specific endpoint. So the demo I'm going to show you later is about getting data from commerce tools into your SaaS graph database. But it could be that you may want to move data between WordPress, or it may be that you want another e-commerce platform that isn't available yet. This is what end-to-end apps work. So it works in real time. the data comes in and it goes straight into the destination. The data schema is automatically created in the destination system, so you don't control the mapping, it's automatically created for you. And the configuration is limited to what the app gives you, basically. So there may be options to choose stuff, but it's not as configurable as kind of a source or destination app. And it's available in both licensing models. So if you're free, then you would only be able to, then you can use end-to-end apps that push data directly into an endpoint. The other type of application are data syncs apps. These give you more flexibility, and an app can act as a data source or a destination or both. So for example, it could be pushing data into an Optimizely application, or it could be pushing data out from Optimizely into somewhere else. So it could be, you may want to push data into a different CDP platform, for example. There's real-time sync. So this is where the data goes straight through. Or they're scheduled. And we're scheduled, how can I explain this? It's about taking the data from the source and placing the data into the OCP database. So you create a custom table within the OCP database, and then you push it into the destination. Okay, schedule, yeah. So with the schedule, it'll either push data into your endpoint, into the OCP database, or it'll actually read data from the OCP database. So it's about getting data in, then you kind of have another process that gets it out again. The benefit of this approach is it allows you to get data from a single destination and push it to multiple destinations. So if we were taking data from an e-commerce system, for example, our products, we may want to push that data into our SaaS CMS content graph, but we also may want to push that into ODP. And we can define the frequency of how often these syncs work. So they could be, the quickest you've got is every 10 minutes, or it could be up to every 10 days. Okay, so this is the sync manager. I just wanted to show you this because it kind of shows you the source on the left-hand side, where you're getting the data from. So in this case, I'm taking the data from an OCP database. The object that I've created is a custom object that I've defined within that interface. And then the destination, I'm sticking it into content graph. I'm choosing the instance of content graph that I want to push it to. So you choose the one that's relevant. I'm choosing the object that I want to push it to. If the object doesn't exist, then you can actually choose to automatically create that. I think Tom mentioned that earlier. So it creates a schema for you automatically. So you don't need to go into content graph and create that yourself. It's all handled in this interface. And I think the interface is going to improve over time. And then at the bottom, you've got the field mappings. So you can choose the data from the source and where it wants to go to in the destination. So actually what I'm doing here is, yeah, I've got a file upload that's sticking it into the data store, and then that into the store table in the OCP database. And then it's pushing it into content graph. Kind of, yeah, gone through that. So the destination. So we define the field mappings and content graph. We'll create a new schema if needed. Okay. So this is just kind of a screenshot of the app library. So we can see these are the apps that we've got today. So you've got integration with Binder, you've got integration with Commerce Tools, Shopify, WordPress. These are kind of changing a little bit. So Commerce Tools is an end-to-end connection at the moment. Shopify, WordPress are go into OCP database, but they're going to be changing to make it more streamlined. File export allows you to get data out of somewhere and stick it into a file. File upload, they're all pretty self-explanatory, but like the custom endpoint is a great way of, it just gives you a webhook and you can just push data into it from anywhere, and then that will just flow through and end up into the destination. As I mentioned, if the app doesn't exist, then you can go and create your own private app or public app to kind of fulfill the requirement that you've got. I think this is really exciting because it gives us a framework for integrating data from external systems that we may have to interface with, and to get them into Optimizely. At the moment, kind of really the only destination is content graph, but that's evolving. So there's going to be, pushing data into ADP, into Opal. I think that's on the roadmap. There's also going to be connectors created for other DAMs such as Brandfolder, Cloudinary, other e-commerce systems like BigCommerce, and there's also, I believe, Optimizely speaking to Coveo and Algolia about getting destination endpoints created, so you'll be able to take data from Content Graph or anywhere really and stick it into those search engines. So I think it's like kind of a really exciting framework. It's early days, but I think there's a lot of potential there. And I think as a person, when you're doing your day-to-day role and you need to do some integration piece and get data into Optimizely, it's a really exciting tool that we can use rather than having to, spin something up with Azure functions or using kind of a middleware tool such as Boomi. It kind of answers a lot of integration challenges that you may face. Kind of touching on external destinations. So at the moment, we've only got the ability to export data to out of the box. So I export data to a file. We could actually create our own. So the API does support, or the development framework does support creating our own. But there are going to be more, as I've mentioned, Coveo, Algolia, but more apps available that will act as external destinations. So, for example, we may want to push data into another CDP or another CMS even, or whatever we want to do. There's going to be the connectors to support that. Okay, so OCP is a core product for Optimizely. Speaking to Alex, the product manager there, he's kind of very keen to stress that a lot of teams within Optimizely are really excited by that product and they're using it to kind of deliver their own functionality. It's not just something for partners to use or other, Optimizely users. It's something that's going to be grown and really built on, and I think that's really reassuring because it means that it's something that's going to evolve and not just kind of sit as it is today. But there's some things that I think kind of need to be working on. It's not possible to delete data yet, so you kind of stick something into Content Graph, but you can't get it out. But these are things that are going to be worked on. So you kind of have to deal with data states and kind of have flags on data to say that it's expired. There's no conditional logic or filtering, so you can't kind of bring data in and kind of funnel it in some way, because you may want to bring your data into a big table in OCP, and you may want to push some data to, say, a SaaS CMS, and you may want to push some data to ADP. That's not there, but it's on the roadmap. When's it available? So GA for the free tier is kind of July 2025. It's kind of like a bit of a moving target, but I think that's when Optimizely are looking to release this. They're aiming to roll it out for SaaS CMS first, and then there's going to be more of a general rollout after that. But the paid tier, it's available now if you were to contact Optimizely. Okay, I'm going to quickly do a demo. Let's hope this works. Let me just bring some screens across. Lost my mouse. Okay, so where are we? What I've got here, so I've created a custom endpoint. And if we go into the settings, we can see that I've created this one here. It is connected to my store object, which is visible over here. So we go to objects and fields. I've created a store object. So it's very simple to do. So if I go over to over down here, okay, so I've got my Azure function. Okay. So what I will do is just, oh no, before I do that, so if I go here and run my query, then you can see the data. So this is the data in Content Graph. If I go back here and I go to the form data, it's very fiddly. And if I just change this to be another test, and then let's send that. So what I've just done there, I've just called the webhook, and that sent the data to the OCP platform, and the webhook I just showed you. So that data is going to go to the database in OCP, or the table in OCP. So if I go back to this screen here, okay, and then go to the Object Explorer, I choose my objects, and I choose store. Now this takes a little bit of time, so you can see that this record here, 101, was last updated yesterday, and you can see, if I click on the value here, that the data, the store type is test2. If we just wait a little bit of time, takes a few minutes. While I'm doing that, I also got another connection set up for commerce tools. I was going to hoping to show this on a website, but I ran out of time. But if I go to over here, and I go to this commerce product query, then you can see basically these are just all the products that have been synced from Commerce Tools, which is a headless e-commerce system. So we can bring all those products straight into Optimizely Content Graph, and we can surface them and use them within our headless CMS project, which I think is pretty exciting. Okay, let's go back to here. Hopefully this is refreshed. No. And like all those, it takes a bit of time. I was doing this a lot quicker yesterday.
Live demos. This time.
Okay. Let me go over to the sync manager and I'll just talk you through this. Okay, so what I've done now, as I've just mentioned, I've got the data into the OCP database. And then I've got this sync. What this sync does is kind of moving the data from the OCP table into the SAS CMS. So if I go in here and I edit it, then I've got basically the connector. You saw this on the screenshot earlier. So I've basically got the table that I've just shown you in the OCP database, the object. I'm giving it the destination. So it could be an OCP app or content graph, but this list will just grow over time as more applications come online. A data source is, again, with CMP, so you can actually move data at the moment from content marketing platform. Okay, so let's see if you come back here, because if it hasn't worked, I'm going to give it. Yay! So we can see there that it was updated, and we can see that the type, where are we, is another test 2. So now if I close this and cross my fingers, so this is generally run on a schedule, but I can actually choose to trigger this now. Okay. And then if we go to give it a little bit of time. Okay, 2034. Okay, so that's ran. So hopefully, if I go back here, and I run this, there's a type. No, it hasn't.
Do you want to turn off the stored Ruby in graphical?
Where is that then?
On the right, just where it says execute query, the fourth button, down, cache off, yeah.
Hey, cheers, Minesh. So yeah, so you can see, there's an end-to-end there going through. So going back to the presentation, can't we get rid of this? Yeah, so kind of wrapping up the demo. I'll skip any questions. Yes, I just wanted to say thanks to Alex and Powell at Optimizely, because they were really helpful, kind of bringing this together and getting me to understand the product's changing a little bit and getting the deck prepared and just understanding what's on the roadmap. They've been really, really useful. So hopefully everyone's found that interesting. And any questions?
Would that OCP then be that middle layer for external content, or is that how you see it?
Yeah, so it allows you to build apps. So there's apps, so there's kind of two scenarios. As I said, there's like end-to-end, so that's really about an app that basically takes data from somewhere and puts it somewhere. So the Commerce Tools app that I've got configured, you just configure that and you make a change in Commerce Tools, and like within moments it will appear in Content Graph. Direct integration. It's about building two systems and joining them together. So you can connect any external system that you wanted to and connect it to an Optimizely product. So if you want to get into data into Content Graph, you wanted to get into OCP, if you wanted to get it into your PaaS commerce system or your PaaS CMS. That will be available at some stage if you want to get it into Opal. So, you say you want to get data into Opal so you can do some kind of knowledge, internal knowledge about your product, then that would be possible in the future. So if you, sorry.
Just wanted to add on to that one for you as well, Andrew. So as I touched on the content manager, particularly because of our recent partnership with Commerce Tools, we're particularly focused on how we plug in that content into content manager.
Yes.
So that, because right now it's totally possible to bring Commerce Tools content onto the CMS, but we want to make it as easy as possible. And we just want to make it super
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah, Alex actually showed me a demo where you can take external content. So the demo he showed me was products that existed in Content Graph that you sync from Content Graph into Content Graph, sorry, Commerce Tools into Content Graph, and then you saw those products available as entities within Visual Builder. So you could actually just drag it, and so that kind of like just kind of draws everything together, doesn't it? It's just pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
And ultimately, everything that comes into Graph via OCP will ultimately get surfaced into Content Manager within the CMS. So your customers will have a list of sources on the left-hand side, which will be those integrations, and they can see all of that content in that one place. And they can use it, they can utilize it on a page. So if they want to bring that product content onto a page, they can just do that, really easy. We're, looking at how we make that as simple as possible.
Yeah.
We think that's a feature.
Yeah, I'm thinking, look at it from us. Sorry, 2 seconds.
We're going to have to wrap up.
Okay.
We're already a bit over and we're a bit tight for time for the wrap up of this. So.
Okay, sorry.
I'll talk to you later.
Yeah.
All right, hi everyone. Short break this time because we're trying to make up some time. I'm Jacob, for those who I haven't met earlier. I'm not just the AV guy, I'm also talking. I'm a solution architect at Niteco. I work with Scott and I'm also an OMVP. I'm going to be talking about not just edge logs, it's a little bit more exciting than that, I promise. The full title is Visualise Cloudflare Edge Logs with Grafana. Loads of interesting words that don't make any sense, but we're going to figure that out together. So, the beta, what is it? Well, Minesh also told us already what the beta is, but this specific one gives us access to the Cloudflare Edge logs for our DXP customers, right? Because they all use Cloudflare by default unless they're crazy and turn it off. Okay, that's cool. What is the Edge logs? Okay, so for those of you who don't know, this is Cloudflare's network as of yesterday when I stole this PNG from their website. Whenever anyone goes to any website, usually they go through a CDN first. In our customers' cases, it's Cloudflare, so it'll be the closest one geographically to them. Now, historically, this was built to serve a very specific problem, which was downloading things take a long time and the internet was very slow. So all of these were just like cache images and stuff near wherever people are. Of course, now the internet's really fast, so we actually figured out how to do stuff here rather than on our server, because going here is way quicker than going to our server. So now the edge is really smart. You can run AI on the edge, you can do compute on the edge, you can do pretty much everything on the edge, which gives us a new problem. What the hell is the edge doing? This is an edge log, okay? Every single request that comes in generates JSON, that's good at least, of all of this. It's like, okay, that's a lot. But some of it is useful. So here we can see as an example where I pulled out someone from Paris loaded an image and it was an eyeball according to Cloudflare, which is cool, but it hit their cache. So it didn't even go to our server, just Cloudflare gave them the stuff. It's like, okay, we knew how to figure that out quite a while ago, but some of it's new to us. So here we can see someone from Singapore hit our search product page and they were returned a 403, an unauthorized response, and they had a WAF attack score, which is Cloudflare's attack score of 85%. And the security action that Cloudflare took was a managed challenge. Now, all of this in the past, we didn't know about, because this happens before it gets to App Insights that Scott talked about earlier. So, WAF attack score, what the hell is that? 85 means it's probably clean, which means we're not being attacked, but it's probably automated in this case. So we can already start to categorize our own responses to what's happening, rather than just going, I think we're being attacked. Managed challenge, what does that mean? In this case, Cloudflare stepped in and they automatically determined should this person or bot get the recaptcha thing when you have to tick a little thingy, or does it just do it automatically? Because it's Cloudflare, they have a lofty ambition, they want to reduce the lifetimes of humans spent solving captchas, and I'm all for that because we all hate solving captchas. The beta's not that new though. This was launched 2 years ago, so it's probably the longest beta in Optimize's history, I think, maybe. But also logs can be kind of boring. So when I was Googling this Cloudflare logs thing, no one talked about it. And I thought, we can do better. We can visualize them with some fancy dashboards, because who doesn't like a fancy dashboard? Okay, how do we do that? Well, in the beta, all we get is basically a link to an Azure storage container. And Optimizers say, good luck, have fun. So from that link, that only lasts 24 hours, so you have to refresh it every 24 hours, you get 7 days of log retention from the moment you signed up. Okay, but now we need to do something with that JSON that we saw earlier, right? So it goes Cloudflare, Azure, Profit. This is where Grafana comes in. Grafana is very popular in the self-hosting open source community because it's an open source thing you can just run and it can visualize literally anything you can throw at it. So I thought, I've never actually used it. This is a good use case. But Grafana isn't actually that smart. It's just the graphing layer, as I learned while I was building this. It needs a knowledge engine underneath to power the knowledge. In this case, we're using Loki because that's the easiest one. AI figured out for me how to chuck JSON at. And we're doing the chucking with Node.js because why not? Node.js is fun. And I wrapped everything in Docker because I like Docker. And Grafana and Loki come with their own Docker stack, so I just thought, you know what, why not put the whole thing in Docker? So, quick setup. Apparently there was a Windows Jennifer Aniston thing as well, which I found when I was looking for this GIF. I really need to check this source, but that's awesome. So how can you do exactly what I'm going to show you now? Very simple. Apply for the beta, install Docker, get the API key that Minesh showed us earlier, and run it. So just clone the repo, create an environment file for yourself, Docker compose up, and you're basically there. It's alive, right? So this is what you'll be greeted with. For those of you who haven't used Docker, it's just our little Opti edge log stack running the 3 different things. Log ingester is something I and mostly AI coded. The other 2 is just standard Loki Grafana. That doesn't do much for it, but we can already start to see in the container itself the logs from the actual Node.js app. So here we can see every like 10, 15 seconds, it's scanning that Azure storage container, just seeing, hey, what's new? Again, you could probably build a better integration with this, but because Optimize just give you that link and they're like, figure it out, this works. So now we need to visualize it, right? Okay, we've got Loki, it's got all this knowledge, we just need to show it somewhere. So in my repo, I've got a JSON file that you can just import and just give it a couple of minutes, you'll get the data. It's really simple. I can't show you real stuff because I'm only running it with real client stuff and there's IPs everywhere. So I took a lot of screenshots to try and walk you through it, but it's real simple. You just click upload, choose the JSON in the repo, and you'll be greeted with literally this. So loads of interesting things we can see here that most of it we never had any knowledge of before. So HTTP response rate, that's pretty simple, right? We could probably figure that out with App Insights. It's basically, is our server returning responses that are success or failures? That's my very simple query. Then cache status distribution, that was new to us unless you build something specific to look at the cache stuff, but most people don't. So here we can see in this example that most things are either being cache status hit, which is what we want to see, the light blue line, or the second line is cache status dynamic, which for those of you who don't know Cloudflare's logic, that means it's something with a query string that they deliberately don't cache unless you tell them to. So that means pretty healthy in terms of cache ratio. Then average edge time to first byte, that's really bad. What is Cloudflare doing? Now this client is in America. I don't know what their network in America is doing. They're trying to be the world's fastest CDN. I think they're probably a bit behind Fastly in the US here for our client, but that's okay. They can work on it because now they can also see these stats. My favorite one, edge security actions. This is where we can see that managed challenge that I was speaking of before. At this specific time, this client wasn't being attacked or scraped aggressively, so there weren't really any actions to show. We can see the average origin response time. So it takes longer to go to Cloudflare than it does to go to Azure. Weird. Anyway, traffic type, that's how Cloudflare categorizes these traffics. They have an allow list, which I'm pretty sure just comes from Optimizely, saying, you know, the health check endpoint on DXP, that kind of thing. Not a lot of that, not a lot of monitoring servers, quite a lot of no record, which means humans, search engines, and then unknown, even Cloudflare doesn't know at this point. And then right down here, we can't see too much, but that's just traffic by origin, which I will show you in a bit. Oops. So it's very easy to customize those panels or to add your own ones. So here I'll just show you two of them. The first one is the HTTP response rate. Similar to what we saw in Scott's talk, they've got their own query language, which is completely AI generatable. But it's pretty simple, right? We've got the sum of the rate. This is my container. We're looking at JSON, where the edge status is between those two parameters. Pretty simple. Can't see down here, but it's the same, but just a bit bigger HTTP status. And then the other one, traffic origin, again, same thing, top 5 countries where there wasn't an error returned, but we do know what country it is, show it like this. So again, already this tells us American client, lots of traffic from Singapore, should probably block that, and probably us from Vietnam working on it. I think that's already quite cool. Just me not being an expert in Grafana, I can already see loads of useful things, and we had real use cases where the client had a 524 response and something was dying somewhere and we didn't know where. I could just go, look, I didn't have to ask Opti support. We could see, never reach Cloudflare, it's not our problem. Another situation, Scott mentioned, how nice would it be if we could have alerts? Hey, not the website is down, hey, we're being attacked. You can set up your own alerts as much as you like in Grafana. As soon as the information is there, you got complete freedom. You can have SMTP alerts, you can have custom dashboards, even nicer than my ones. As I said, traffic type and the block actions I find really useful. It's one of those where, especially if you're working with a client who's being scraped a lot and you're trying to build custom rules via Optimizely support for like Cloudflare page rules, maybe you set the security action to high, you tweak the WAF scores. We never knew if that worked unless the complaints stopped, right? That was the only mechanism we had, is like we feel like we're being scraped too much. Now we can actually see and we can monitor it ourselves, which means we can be that much more accurate in our actual limitations of scraping, especially when it comes to like AI these days, which are quite heavy in scraping. But I'm also interested to see what you come up with. So as I said, everything I showed you, literally turnkey, takes 2 seconds once you have an API key that Minesh already has for us. So let's try his and see if we can do it before he shuts it down. All you need to do, scan this, go to the repo, clone it down, and I am Jacob. Thank you very much for listening.
So this is CMS 12 graph being integrated into configured commerce, which is not the recommended way to do it. So we're going to go I'm Daniel. I'm a senior developer at Netcel. Been working with Optimizely about 15 years now and configured commerce for a few years now. So, first of all, the planning list, explain why we did it. The main customer we did this for came in with a B2B focus, which meant configured commerce product. They had a very specific product flow for a specific product, which meant we customized a specific journey for them with a very specific process, but that's not covered in this. They also had, at the current point, about 250,000 products that they're pulling in via PIM, so they've got the PIM product as well. And then they also wanted paid content and forms, which they got CMS 12 for, but it turns out they had only around up to about 100 pages for that. So we looked at the idea of focusing on the commerce first. And some other things that we're planning to implement into CMS, like search and listings, were currently descoped. So the initial delivery was just the content. So the client had a phased release for this. So, yeah, so each phase was aimed to launch a product at a time with all the related integrations. Once the PIM product launched in phase 2, the client has since been rolling out phases of extra products. So the products have scaled up from a few hundred initially, then to thousands, then to tens of thousands. In the first phase, we delivered them the configured commerce product with integration to the ERP system, which is how they deliver the goods to the customers. The custom product journey for their most important product, which gave them the most money. but we didn't launch the storefront at that point. And in the second phase, we launched the PIM product, so they could implement significantly more products, integrate with the commerce product, and provided the Spire storefront themed up so that they can actually use the out-of-the-box storefront. Then the final phase was pulling in CMS product and integrating it, which is what this talk is about. So the architecture for this was just the main three products: configured commerce, PIM, CMS12, which was originally find when the customer first came to us. Graph was in beta back then, so we moved on to Graph to run this project. We looked at CMS12 events and jobs to push the routing from CMS12 into commerce. We configured some custom settings in commerce to get the graph system working with it. Then a bunch of middleware produced inside commerce itself to actually connect up to that. And then inside the Spire CMS, I added a cloud page and a CMS page template to pull in content from the other system. So first of all, the Spire CMS, for users have not used the Spire CMS from the configured commerce side, it's actually a single page application that comes out the box with configured commerce. Gives you a complete site with pages and products, pages, search facilities, categorization, all working out the box. So the customer can go into here, they can configure up some styling, add their logos, and start using the product straight away. From a technical perspective, that means it's nothing, somewhat different to the CMS you're used to, CMS12. It has page and widgets, which are essentially blocks. Styling can be applied without any development tool. They go into the style guide section, configure some colors and some basic options. Blueprints can be used to actually develop a more significant theme. If you've ever seen WordPress themes where you package up a set styling, push it up, this works in very much the same way. The existing pages and widgets there can actually just be overridden with new behavior. So at the moment there's a few content pages like About Us, Contact Us and the like. You could actually create a new template and provide different behavior there. And if you want to create new behavior, you can just add new pages and widgets to the system as well, while maintaining this out-of-the-box solution. There is a number of limitations to CMS. It's nothing like CMS12. So there's no versioning on pages for a start, because they're focused on products, not paid content. There's a lot of lack of quality of life compared to CMS12, which is one of the reasons the client has a CMS12 product. So the implementation. We decided to switch to Graph. The client got fined when it was originally provisioned, but we switched to Graph to get the REST functionality from Graph. We used the headless behavior for CMS12, which is just pointing the primary URL to the actual Spire site and keeping the edit URL to the CMS URL. No templates are done on the CMS12 side, like a normal headless site. And we did a UI URL change because the routing system in Spire CMS, because the product isn't easily customizable. There's no next, there's no advanced JavaScript behavior for the routing, so we had to hook into a middleware layer. So I changed the URL to get it to hit the middleware rather than the standard routing behavior. This then allowed preview to show via the Spire template, because the middleware could adapt the URL and fix any issues with the differences in routing behavior. There are some issues with that in dev, because for some strange reason configured commerce in dev is HTTP only, and CMS12 of course is HTTPS only. So there's a number of development quirks we had to work around. So the URL change I'm flagging here, partially to point out what it does. So you may not have done this before, also possibly because one of the things this does do is stop Opti ID working. Because the moment you deviate from the standard structure for hitting the CMS URL, Opti ID doesn't have the callback URL to hit back to log in. Okay. On the configured commerce side, there was significantly more configuration needed to pull the content in. So we had configured commerce with the Spire storefront blueprints. That was the behavior we did for earlier phases of the project to deliver the actual storefront to them. We created a cloud content system page. That was my page template, which was going to take the URLs and deliver normal public content pages to people. I created a separate CMS system page, which would, when you hit it with the preview URL from the CMS, it actually understands that and is able to pull the preview version from Graph instead of the public version from Graph. By default, Graph only allows access to the public ones. CSP configuration was done inside the commerce side to allow CMS to be loaded in the iframe in CMS 12. So by default, when you're loading in the iframe, the product needs to allow that. By default, you should be stopping cross-site scripting from that side. We then introduced a bunch of middleware to handle the primary thing, which was the routing between the two. So as you create content in the CMS 12 side, I just needed to push the URLs over to the commerce side. Oh, go back. And then we needed to, some of the middleware, we needed to have it in a way that the customer could use it externally to both sites. They wanted to be able to reuse some of the behavior we did to pull the content into the intranet and possibly another site. Okay. I want to cover it later because it's part over technical for the moment. Yeah, so inside configured commerce, there's just a number of security systems are hidden around there as a CSP setting. By default, this is empty and not used by commerce. So without that, it by default is blocked from being shown in an iframe on any other site. So it just needs some basic configuration there for that. And the commerce side itself as well has a lot of stuff that can be extended out from the settings side. So we simply had some settings in here to see add graph in. So this would be done the same way you'd add your settings in on the CMS 12 side. So we just use that and create some middleware to call that with those settings directly. One of the reasons for it sitting inside the commerce product is with this single page application, unlike say using a Vercel front end site, you don't have a back end for the JavaScript. So you have nowhere safe to call stuff from where you want to hide any keys. With some of the complexities in dev, a lot of the systems wouldn't talk to each other, especially with all of the products that were working independently at the time. So what we did to enable the front end team to work and separate them from the complexities of the other products is we introduced Storybook. We set up the pages and widgets we needed to deliver from both the CMS side and the commerce side, and we created stories that purely delivered it from data rather than from the actual product itself, but while keeping the templates the front end team were working on directly in the products themselves. So while they're working on it and testing Storybook, they were actually producing the same code that got delivered from the blueprints. And when done in that way, a lot of the basic templating is effectively just done as a template rather than React in a next context. Okay, retrospective. So this project was started some years ago. So at the time, there was a number of things, the choices we made based on the products available at the time. So based at the time, Spire CMS, without not knowing how little client content the client wanted to initially launch with, was probably sufficient for their early launch. They probably didn't need CMS 12 till a later date when they were using more content and more functionality. Also, SaaS CMS 12 would have been perfect for this client because they're primarily pulling in a bunch of content entirely via headlessly into the product. It would have required us to integrate in a different way, but it would have probably resulted in a better product for it. The C# Commerce API. Yeah, there's a C# Commerce SDK to be able to be using it on the CMS 12 site. One of the requirements for that is you basically stop using the Spire storefront you get with the configured commerce product and you develop an entire storefront from scratch for your client in the CMS 12 in the normal way you would do using MVC or using another front-end site. So that was out of scope for the budget for the client, but that is also a very good option that removes a lot of complexities from integrating these products. Finally, both Commerce and CMS 12 both work headlessly. They both rely on a bunch of APIs, Graph and other things. And again, just running everything headlessly would actually simplify integrating products, as would using some of the other products mentioned today. So, betas and overheads. So I mentioned some of it briefly earlier, but when we started this, we started the project at the point Graph was in beta. So when we started, we didn't know when Graph was being released, but luckily it was released by the time we got to phase 3 of the project. Headless Forms was in beta as well and was launched during development and did cause us issues because I don't know if anyone's tried working with Headless Forms early on, but they changed fairly significantly some of the structures and the way it worked inside Graph. So that caused us the temporary blocker for that it's got pushed to a future phase. Spire CMS provided a lot of the same functionality as CMS 12. So on the launch, when we launched the earlier phases, we did actually launch them the out-of-the-box pages, which give them WYSIWYGs, content pages, content us, basic forms, and sort of basic functionality that was enough for them for the couple of years in the early part of the project. The Spire CMS routing is not designed to be extended at all. I've been aiming to produce some more technical details on how we did that in the end, but essentially there is a hidden URL table in the database, which you do have full access to in the C# backend, and you can modify, but essentially what we had to do was, for the templates, we had to manually push in from the middleware additional URLs for the existing template as alternative URLs to allow it to do this behavior, but there was no out-of-the-box documented way to access this. The URL config checker, as I was mentioning earlier, just broke using OptiID. Luckily, OptiID wasn't in the delivery chain for the client, but we need to look at a more sensible way of hooking in the middle there. And the biggest thing from the commerce side is a lot of the ways it works and a lot of the pain points for integration is there's some very strict security on the commerce side where it's trying to prevent you doing things that it doesn't want to do, and that's where integration pain points come in. So for example, if you're used to using React and Next, you're used to adding packages. On this project, we simply could not add a NuGet package, an NPM package. There's a very strict whitelist of NPM packages. If you deviate from that, so a front-end developer just adds a package on, that may stop your site deploying it all. Okay. So I probably rushed through that a little quickly, but any questions on that? Yeah.
So that last point you made, is that to say that with Spire CMS, you've got a whitelist of NPM packages that you can't add to?
Yes.
If I heard that correct?
Yes. They have a whitelist of what you can deploy. The theory behind Spire CMS is this is an out-of-the-box working product. So we can extend it, but you're working within the limitations of that product and accelerator. It's not you can do whatever you want with. You can just make this headless and do whatever you want in front of it with your own front-end site. But that's more the ideology behind the configured commerce product.
Cool.
Any more? Yeah.
If you started the project today,
Yeah.
would you use configured commerce, or your points around how the Spire CMS actually kind of replicated functionality that's now available in...
If we did it now, we'd probably push this client to say Spire CMS does enough for you, don't go for CMS 12. Or if we try and push them to have more budget to rebuild the storefront, because the middle option isn't the best. So, but the product out of the box does a lot. And if your focus is primarily commerce and you've got very little content, and that content could also just sit on the side rather than directly in the product.
So if you want a turnkey solution,
Yeah.
configured commerce is a really
Yeah.
good fit. If you want to do the customized...
Configured commerce, you can get it provisioned from Optimizely, and on the day it's provisioned, you can launch a site. It's geared for that perspective.
You're not forced to use Spire, but you can use configured commerce in a headless manner.
You can go completely headless. But the REST API, there's a REST API that's the same API that the Spire CMS is using.
So you've got a full API, you can build your own
Yeah.
storage.
And the
benefits are, if you're using the blueprints, you get a much faster time to market and build.
Yeah, you have the full code for the storefront, so you have all the examples of using the REST API in the examples in the storefront itself. Yeah.
With configured commerce, do you think it's getting the attention it needs from Optimizely? It seems to be like...
It's pretty more a marketing question.
Well,
suite, and that's like a known. Obviously, if you are familiar with Optimize's history of acquiring different products, configured commerce is one of those, and it's very, very, very good as the kind of touching on with the certain audience, particularly you guys obviously in the manufacturing space. It's just huge. Because they just want that like quick and just getting it up and running. The scenario that we've just been through is not necessarily something that we see a lot of, which is CMS 12 with configured commerce, because it has its own CMS behind the scenes.
Yes.
So it's kind of meeting two different needs.
Is that CMS going to stay or be replaced?
Spire CMS.
Yes.
But they are still developing it. They are adding improvements all the time. But one of the benefits of that product is you can just leave them updating it and pushing updates out. So if you're not customizing it heavily, that can get very frequent, regular updates with low developer interaction.
So Spire CMS is sticking around, but they are also exploring opportunities with SaaS CMS to see if that's not something that we could explore. But the inherent challenge is that then you end up almost paying for two CMSs, and people don't want to do that as much. So it's, but to answer your question, it's very like the demand for configured commerce is still very high within with our customers, because for that addressable market, it's the perfect fit. So that's kind of what we're.
And it's much bigger in the USA, wasn't it?
But it's very much, there's a customer that wants commerce first, that wants this product.
But with the optimizing one vision, is it going to be integrated with experimentation, CMP, ODP, all of that? Is that?
Yeah, so I can't speak for the configured commerce team's direct roadmap, because I've seen it for a little while. But I do know that they are, like every product team within Optimize is encouraged and targeted with the Optimize vision. So I would highly expect that stuff would be on their roadmap if it's not already coming soon. I know that they recently integrated with DAM, so that Optimize's DAM works with configured commerce now. So I would anticipate that they'll be already going with that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you very much.
Cool. Okay, I'm just going to hopefully cover some more boring stuff. We've seen a lot of the cool stuff this evening. We've seen AI, we've seen Graph, Opti Connect. So yeah, nothing particularly fancy from me this evening. Nothing, no rocket science, but yeah, just back to kind of the core setup for a CMS 12 Optimizing project. When starting off a new Optimizing project, I like to start with a clean slate. I'm sure many of you have starter kits or accelerator kits that contain much more than what I'm going to cover this evening. But just a quick introduction. My name's Jeremy Brown. I'm a TTL at Unrivaled. I'm based in our Belfast office. So I'm a silver OMVP, and I've been working now with Optimizely for about 7 years. So yeah, we were formally made to engage and were acquired by Unrivaled in 2022. So yeah, starting with the real basics. Yeah, we've looked at. I've been talking about kind of the SEO or GEO, AEO properties. So yeah, your basic meta properties, social properties for Open Graph and Twitter, and then the image options for your socials. So whether it's Square or all the other variations that are available there. You can obviously set your meta robots at page level, so your index, no index, follow, no follow. You can, whatever search provider you're using, whether it's search and navigation or graph, You may want to give control to allow pages to be indexed or not. So yeah, it's some just real basic stuff to start off with. I'm sure there's a lot of missed there, but that's a starting point anyway. In terms of NuGet packages then, depending on requirements, yeah, optimizing forms is often a good one to get in there for localization of text, whether you're managing labels, error messages. debug localization providers is always a good one for managing that. XML sitemaps, you have the one from Geta, and I've more recently been looking at the categories NuGet package from Geta as well. We have the robots handler from Mark to manage your robots TXT. We have 301 redirect manager from Geta as well. I'm not sure if any of you used the redirect manager from Epic Web. I haven't looked at it myself, but I know there's some performance issues raised on not find handler recently, so yeah, exploring other options there. Then there's the security stuff, so there's at Unrivaled, we obviously go with Jesus. Not biased at all there, but they're both very good. It's good to have a competitive marketplace. Another one we looked at recently was restricting access to the CMS by IP, and we implemented the IP whitelist add-on, which proved very good. I'm not really one for adding NuGet packages for the sake of it, but there was a good blog post a number of years ago from Valdis around some of the lesser known Optimizely add-ons, which is worth a read. There's the Optimizely bulk edit plugin, there's the block enhancement plugin, and then there's the CMS audit plugin, which is good when you're auditing the usage of pages and blocks across your site.
There's another really good one by Geta, which is content type icons.
Oh yeah, so yep.
It's the content icons of the tree and the
yep.
content areas. So it really gives you a lot more context about what type of block it is or what type of page it is.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I haven't used that one, but I've seen it before. Must take a look at that one. In terms of configuration then, going down the SSO route, obviously Opti ID, configure that with Entra or Okta. Custom error pages, so create and configure custom error pages for your 404, 500. Server error page, typically we would implement that as the 500 page as a static page. Then there's some global redirects. So a few examples of redirects you might want to add here. So we've got the trailing slash, we've got your lowercase URLs, HTTP to HTTPS typically handled. I think it states that in the Optimizely documentation. It's handled and not required. It's handled by DXP. If you're hosting with them, and then you can obviously handle all of the above with a single redirect. I think is best practice from a technical SEO perspective. So the only way I believe you can do that is to use the add IIS URL rewrite middleware, and we've been utilizing that in our projects recently. Then non-dub or dub to dub redirect, or vice versa, depending on your requirements. I think typically it should be handled within managed websites, to ensure there's no impact should you want to add further websites that sits on a non-www subdomain in the future. DXP then, so you're getting started up. Obviously there's the Cloud Platform CMS NuGet package. You might want to reach out to get the dev indexes set up for search and navigation or graph. Get the custom host names configured, PaaS portal access. If you're sending emails from the site, send grid, so confirming the sender domain and the default from address, and then more around the DNS records required for ensuring delivery of emails and they're not hitting people's spam. The other thing we've looked at is the zero downtime deployments, but your website needs to work in read-only mode. I don't know if anybody has implemented that here, but it obviously won't work with commerce, and forms won't be saved down. They obviously can write to the database, so during the deployment, but yeah, it's just it's a nice way to look at deploying to production. Then some performance ideas, static assets, so images, CSS, JavaScript, etc. Adding the caching header for a year. Obviously you need to remember to version your CSS and JavaScript and any images that might need updated. Image optimization then, so responsive images across devices. We're using source sets, lazy loading of images. It is recommended to omit images that are likely to appear above the fold from being lazy loaded. And then, yeah, just some others to consider from a performance perspective. It would be content output caching. Other considerations then for a Greenfield project, so there's the site settings add-on by Epinova, which we recently implemented in a multi-site project, and I found it very good to work with, and yeah, I would probably look at using that in the future. If it's a multilingual site, then obviously your hreflang, schema.org markup. There's a good NuGet package for that. It's called schema.net for your organization schema for breadcrumbs, schema based on page types, news, products, etc. And then yeah, just getting your developers set up. So yeah, some setup instructions for user secrets for anything that's stored in Key Vault. If any ideas or suggestions you want to send my way, actually you can scan that now, and I've got like a word cloud set up where we can see live if anybody has any suggestions. Let's see if I can get this up. No, you don't have the QR code. Maybe this one will work.
How do you normally get started with your CMS projects? Do you have an accelerator, or do you start from that every time?
Yeah, we did previously have an accelerator kit for CMS 11, but it was, yeah, it hasn't been updated for CMS 12, so it's starting from scratch at the minute for new projects.
And have you looked at the content management API where hook in some of the modeling, like handle that from AI or anything like that?
No, not personally, but yeah, it's definitely something that's worth exploring. Yeah, yeah.
Can I get in just on, you mentioned about the www redirect,
Mhm.
the redirection service that you said about does the HTTP to S, and the DXP already does the the root domain to the www. So if you're on the DXP, you don't need that in the managed website, so it will just do
Okay.
the redirection service as long as it's configured. That's like a standard thing on the redirection service that optimizing the flows.
Okay, so the www redirect is automatic.
Yeah, on the DXP.
Cool. Yep, some good ones there. So yeah, obviously your favicons, often forgot about. Your manifest file, feature slice architecture. Don't know what that is.
It's an architectural pattern.
Oh, it's a pattern, okay.
Organise your code, so
Yep.
organised by the feature.
Yes, sorry, yes, I get you now.
Yeah, it's about moving away from end-tier style architectures, which are like, I'll put this one feature in 5 different projects. So
Yep.
trying to maintain it later on creates a bigger problem when finding things, but also creates a huge amount of coupling across lots of different functions, which then gives you a greater test area. So it's getting away from that sort of old style
Yep.
end-tier architecture and looking at coupling within a feature and decoupling across features.
Yep, yeah, I've seen that used. Yep, nice.
Is that basically what we see in Foundation? Yeah, it follows it a little bit. Yeah. We've taken it to the next level of our latest one.
I forget what it's called, but there's like a newer feature for like NuGet master or source now that you can turn on as well for solution files, where you can manage the NuGet files centrally across all projects.
Yeah.
So instead
Yep.
of managing separately, you just control it in one.
Yeah, we did that recently.
Yeah, build props.
Yeah.
Really, really good.
Yeah, build props, yeah, that's a good one.
Okay, we are really advanced about basically going for a solution and seeing different versions of the same unit package. Really.
Yeah. Yes, that's exactly what it's surveying. Build props.
Yeah.
I've seen that consolidate tab, and you'll have to go through this and then set it off.
When you've got 20 odd projects in your solution, that's usually when that starts happening.
Yeah, blame Andy.
All right, that's me. Thanks a lot.